really hear properly. So I'm Vanessa Keenan. I'm the Deputy Head of Primary here, and I work alongside Michael. But I'm also the PYP Coordinator, which means that I work with teachers and curriculum coordinators from early years right through to grade 5. So you're probably wondering what this IB Primary Years program is all about, and I'm really hoping that by the end of this session today, you'll all be experts in PYP. You'll be able to go out and tell all your friends about it, and you'll feel that you've got a really good, solid understanding of what it is that we do here at the school. So when we sent out the link for you to sign up for the session, we asked you if you had any questions about the PYP. So I'm just going to leave this up here for a moment for you to have a look, because I think, in my experience, that when somebody has a question, usually there are lots of other people in the audience who also have the same question. And I think it's good for you just to see the kinds of questions that people are asking about this session and about the school in general. So I'll just leave that for a moment for you to have a look through. And if you don't see your own particular question up there that you've typed into the form, we will have time at the end of the session today just to go through some other points and clarifications for you. So we're going to start, and I'm actually going to let you do a little bit of the work to begin with. I'd like you to think about what are the qualities that you would like your child or children here at the school to have by the time they finish their primary and their secondary education here with us at Raha. So just have a little think about it for a moment. And then if you could turn just to the person next to you or somebody who's close to you and just have a chat. What are the kinds of things that you're hoping for your own children? If you're not too close, maybe you can sit a little bit closer. Don't worry, it's not a quiz, it's not a test. Would anyone like to be a risk taker and just maybe call out a few suggested ideas? Anyone? Yes? Go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peggy. I have a child in grade 4, and we are a German family, and I hope when we move back to our country that she will not be behind, you know, she can follow up her curriculum.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else who'd like to share? Yes. Lots of risk takers today.
Hi, I'm Anka. My son Luca, he's in grade 1 now. So what I would like to see in my child is that he has a broader understanding of the world, as well as an understanding that being different is a good thing. So we all kind of want to work together towards a happier, better, let's say, peaceful world. So.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who'd like to share? No? Okay. Mr. Michael, I might pick on you later. Okay, so sort of following on from your comment, actually, the IB has their own mission statement, and their aims are very clear. It's to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people who create a better and more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect. And what comes through very clearly, I think, in the documentation from the IB is that we have a shared responsibility to make our world a better place. And that is, I suppose, the essence of what it is that we want the students to come away with. So the PYP is part of 3 programs. PYP stands for Primary Years Program. There's also Middle Years Program and Diploma Program. And there is also a continual professional program, but we don't offer it here at this school. So these programs are encouraging students across the world to become active. We want to see the action that they're doing, and we do assess that. We want them to be compassionate, lifelong learners who understand that other people with their differences can also be right. And I think that really alludes to the comment that this lady spoke about just now. So how do we do that? Well, we develop international mindedness, or this idea of being a global citizen, by encouraging students to develop these attributes of what we call the learner profile. So you'll hear your children coming home and they'll say, "Mum, Dad, I was a risk taker today," or "I was caring," or I showed the best attribute of the learner profile that I could. So again, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of heavy lifting here. Just think about which of these areas you think you are naturally strong at, and maybe your children as well. What are they naturally inclined to? Are they naturally reflective? Are they naturally balanced individuals? And what are the ones that maybe you would like them to develop a little bit more? So just take a moment to think about that. So I can see for myself that there are some areas that I'm stronger at than others. And what we are saying really is that with an IB education in the primary years program, students will have many experiences that will allow them to develop all of these attributes so that they become very well-rounded citizens by the end of their time here. So we want to know what it is the students will be learning. You're keen to know what it is that we're actually teaching here at the school. And we have three areas. We have the written curriculum, the taught curriculum, and the assessed curriculum. And I'm going to take you through the stages of those this morning. So we have something called the essential elements of the PYP, and these are all of the things that are in the written documentation, the things that we actually teach. There's the knowledge, the content that we want the students to know. There are the concepts, those organizing ideas that help them to make big connections to things. There are the approaches to learning, which are really just skills, things that they can do. And the attitudes that support the attributes of the learner profile. And finally, we have action. How is it that they're actually making the world a better place? Oh, sorry, I'm going a bit crazy there. Oh, Mr. Van, help. Okay. No, it's not coming up. So the slide in between is just the overall structure that the IB presents to us as their curriculum framework. So it takes you through each of these different sections. It's just a visual graphic for you. But I'll send this presentation to everyone at the end. Oh, there it is. So you'll see that at the center, there is the student. And that's what Mr. Michael referred to at the beginning of the session, that we always put the student at the center and the heart of the learning. And around that, we have all of the areas that we teach and that we write about and that we assess. So how do you decide what is relevant knowledge in an international school? Somebody's already mentioned, when I go back to my home country, I want to make sure that my child will be able to sort of pick up where they left off, or will not feel out of place going back to their home school. And so we have to be very careful about what we select in terms of the content for our students. At the same time, we want them to have a very international experience. There was a gentleman who wrote a paper, his name is Ernest Boyer, who's an American educator, and he wrote a paper asking, what does it mean to be educated? And how do you decide what to teach? And what really came through very strongly in his writing was that we have to be mindful of the uniqueness of every single child, the way they learn, and we also have to think about the commonalities in humanity, things that we share as a people across the globe. So with that in mind, he actually came out with 8 big themes, which go across different disciplines. And the IB chose 6 of them, which they felt were universal, they had significance, and that they could be approached from any international school anywhere in the world. And this is what they are. We have who we are, where we are in place and time, how we express ourselves, how we organize ourselves, how the world works, and sharing the planet. And as you can imagine, any of those particular themes, it doesn't matter where you come from or where you might be going to, anywhere in the world, everybody can somehow connect to one of those big themes. So, for example, the Who We Are one is an exploration of the nature of self. We can all relate to that. Sharing the planet, for example, would be the struggle for resources. Again, we can all relate to that in different ways. So with that in mind, we set out a program of inquiry. And every grade level approaches these 6 areas of transdisciplinary themes. One of the questions that came up at the beginning was, why is it that my child does the same theme every year? And so actually, yes, the themes are the same every year. We have these 6 themes, but the content, the skills, the action, they change every year, but they fall under this sort of global umbrella. So in EY1, we have the students do 4 of these themes. In EY2, they do 5 of the themes, and from grade 1 to grade 5, they do all 6 themes every year. Just to refer then to this idea of it being a transdisciplinary program, that just means that the themes and the units, they transcend the boundaries of what we would consider more traditional subjects, like your common core subjects, your sort of math, language, second languages, science, and so on. So within each transdisciplinary theme, we also then have specific units of inquiry. So if your child is in, for example, grade 3, they're doing 6 of the themes, so they're going to do 6 individual units of inquiry. And this is just an example of how a unit of inquiry gets broken down. This is something that the teachers collaboratively plan together for, and they feed into, again, the content and the skills that the students need to learn. So we always start with a big idea, a central idea of some sort. Now, a central idea is taking concepts and putting them together in a statement of relationship. And so from this one, for example, you can see there's a couple of concepts here. There's concepts such as ethical, balance, demand, market, and so on. From this, then, we look at key concepts and related concepts that will help guide the unit. Now, the IB, they outline 8 key concepts for us to choose from every single time. So again, even if your child is doing Who We Are in grade 1, they might be looking at a concept like change, but when they go to grade 2, they'll be looking at connection, reflection, and so on. The related concepts then are also given to us by the IB, but we can come up with our own ones as well if we need to. And really, if you think about it like this, that the key concepts give a breadth to the unit, so that there could be lots of scope for students to do individual inquiries, but also the related concepts help drive the direction of the unit. So if, for example, we took the same central idea, but I changed those related concepts to, for example, power. If you read that central idea and thinking about it in terms of power, you're going to have a very different understanding of what that central idea is. So the concepts are actually very important to help us to guide and to decide what specific case studies we are going to teach the children. And then, of course, we are inquiry-based, so we look through the unit from an inquiry mindset, and we follow different lines of inquiry. Now, there's been a little bit of a shift in recent years with the IB. We do set the lines of inquiry ourselves as teachers, but we also want to allow the students to have a little bit more input into that. So you will see on the new banner that's going to be produced this year that some of the lines of inquiry, it will say at the very bottom, to be developed by the students. So this is an opportunity for them to take their unit and their learning in their own personal directions. Okay, so you're probably thinking, that sounds great, you know, very global, lots of nice big words there, but what about those traditional subjects that we know, which we've all been there, we all went to school, so we all are very familiar with them. Obviously, we do cover traditional subject areas as well. And here we refer to them as the subjects and the strands. So we have the more common traditional language, math, social studies, science, arts in general, and PE and personal and emotional. And within each of those, we have individual strands, which are, I always like to think of it as if you had a book about that subject, your strands are the chapters, and they kind of would get you through understanding everything about that particular subject. Something that's really exciting that's happening in the school this year, and you might not be familiar with it, we review the program of inquiry every year, and usually it's to sort of tighten up the central ideas, making sure that we've got balance across all the units. 2 years ago, we looked specifically at science and the focus and making sure that there's progression in science as the students move up through the grades. And last year, we looked at these 3 areas in particular when we reviewed the program of inquiry. So these 3 areas in particular are taken from ISTE, which is International Society for Technology in Education. They've come out with, I think it's about maybe 9 standards around technology. And these are 3 that we felt as a school we needed to do more to address to prepare students for the future. As you're, I'm sure, all familiar, your children are on iPads and smartphones and so on. So we need to really help them to access that and utilize the power of technology for something good, as opposed to just, playing video games or something. You might wonder why we just chose those 3. Well, we felt that the other areas from ISTE, we actually do really well as a school. It was things like sort of around well-being and also the development of that learner profile piece. So this was, for us, was the missing piece. So this is what we're doing this year in terms of making sure that your children are ready to learn for the future. Just to come back briefly then to the concepts. So this is the list of concepts that we choose from. And again, this is just another example of a unit of inquiry, how it's broken down into central idea, key concepts, related concepts, and lines of inquiry. I'll just give you a moment to read that. Okay, we also just talked a little bit before about so the knowledge, what it is that we want the students to know, what we want them to understand, those concepts, but also what skills we want them to be able to do. So time and time again, I always hear this, this argument from parents, which is, I just want my child to have really basic skills. I just want them to, PYP is great, but what about the writing skills? What about the reading skills? What about all of those things? We do address those. We call them approaches to learning, but they fall under these 5 categories. So we've got thinking skills in terms of their cognitive development, problem solving, the social skills, obviously how well they're managing in school with their peers and so on. Communication skills, this includes things like the reading and the writing and the viewing and the presenting and all of those other areas that might be traditionally, again, called the skills that you want your children to learn. Self-management skills, obviously something that's very important for primary students to develop, and research skills. So that could be things like gathering data, it could be utilizing the library, coming back to the information fluency piece about making sure that they know the sources of information, particularly in a digital age. This is becoming more and more relevant for students. So we do address the skills. Oh. Okay, I'm going to stop talking for a minute. I'm sure you're glad about that. So part of what we do also is the approach. And PYP is an inquiry-based approach to teaching and learning. And Mr. Ivan is going to hit a button, I hope. Thanks.
I think one of the key differences that make an inquiry teacher what they are is their the way of seeing the student, actually, that they see the student first and foremost as a competent, capable, curious, almost partner in learning. So they see the light in each child. They find it, they find what it is that makes that student intrigued and interested, and there's always something in everyone. Inquiry teachers ask more than they tell. They do tell, but their dominant way of working with students is through questions and through the right kinds of questions, so they know how to scaffold. There's a kind of image of the inquiry teacher as this kind of laissez-faire, hands-off teacher that simply lets the kids do what they want. That's been a very persistent image, and it comes from some poor iterations of inquiry. But in fact, the opposite is true of the best inquiry teachers I know. They are teachers that know how to sit with the student, to carefully scaffold. They know their curriculum so well that they can move with the students' interests in order to come to that curriculum. They have a very strong repertoire of strategies and approaches. I mean, in some ways, when you think about teachers that might rely on a textbook to do the work for them, or that, and I still see it, that simply give kids worksheets to fill in, surely that is abdicating responsibility. Maybe it would be even better for those kids if they were able to just go in to find out what they wanted to find out. I think what inquiry teachers do differently is that they're prepared to share the journey with their students. They're prepared to say the important words, "I don't know. I wonder how we might find out." They are not simply a kind of passive guide on the side, as they're often described. They're very much in the centre. They're alongside the student. They are highly sophisticated practitioners. They know where it is. They're wanting to take their students at a big picture level, but they work often with the interests, the questions that the student brings to the learning in order to take them further. They listen, they observe, and they respond to what students reveal to them. They're also teachers that are great designers, so they bring a kind of design thinking disposition to their work.
Am I on? Okay. So Kath Murdoch is probably, I guess she's probably one of the leading experts in inquiry in the world currently. She writes a lot. She's published, many books and articles about inquiry. Some of our teachers, in fact, have been to trainings with her, and so we get a lot of insight about inquiry through her writings and through her own teachings. One thing just to sort of pick up on there is that with inquiry, what you're trying to do is to link students' prior learning or their existing knowledge with new learning. But also, what sort of makes the IB special, I suppose, is when we use concepts, that allows us to then let those students transfer their meaning and transfer their understandings to new situations. So you're taking what they know, developing that, and giving them the opportunity to apply in a new circumstance, which is what we do every day, right? We take things that we know when we are in unfamiliar circumstances. You use your knowledge and your skills in order to take an action. Even something as simple as coming here, if you've never been to the theatre before, you have those skills to know how to take an action in a new situation. So you would ask for directions, for example, something as simple as that. Okay, so these are just some points about what inquiry looks like. And again, I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to read through those. more. Okay, just another little video just to show you what inquiry might look like in one of our early years classrooms, for example. Oh, go ahead.
Made of wood and fabric.
So this is your second boat, yeah?
Yeah.
What happened to the other one?
It sinks.
It sunk. Okay, let's see. What's happening? Why do you think this one floats and your last one sunk?
Because it had glass and it made it heavier.
Oh, so you had the glass on the sides and it made it heavier. Well done, Alia. Pretty cool.
Where's the other? It's made of.
Thank you. Just want to share with you that another kind of term that's bandied about, I think, a lot with education, especially with PYP, is, oh, it's very hands-on. Yes, obviously in an early years classroom, it is very hands-on. They're getting their fingers in the mud and the water and so on. But as you could see from that clip, it wasn't just about the doing. It was very much about the questioning, the communication, and the thinking as well. So again, sometimes there's a sort of a misconception about play as being something that children just do, but it's actually really important for them to do that, because as they're playing, they are developing different strategies, and they're reinforcing patterns, models of behavior that they're familiar with, which is why you always see them, pretending to drive race cars, or they're putting on the apron to do some cooking. But it's also developing cognitive thinking skills for them, which is why play is actually very, very important. Okay, just a little bit about action. So I mentioned that we also have, as well as the attitudes and the skills and the concepts and the knowledge, we have action as well. And sort of the goal is really for the students to take action. And you will hear, especially as you're sort of moving up through the primary school, you'll hear the children, again, coming home and talking about taking action. We're going to, write a letter to somebody, or we're going to do a mini protest about something. And sometimes it's a really big action. And sometimes it can be something as simple as changing your perspective or deciding to sit with a new friend at playtime. So action isn't always these big dramatic events. Sometimes they're very subtle, and we do encourage students to reflect on that quite a bit. The IB in particular, I always have to refer to these, sorry, they outline 5 in particular. So they talk about action through lifestyle choices, participation, advocacy, social justice, which is something that our student council is very hot on at the moment, I think, and social entrepreneurship. So it's interesting that we hear a lot about entrepreneurial talents, particularly in this part of the world, but the IB have been talking about it for quite a long time as well. Gone again. Yep, so that's what it's all about, making the world a better place. Just want to address this area about agency. So the IB has recently undergone a review for the PYP in particular. A couple of years ago, I think they did the MYP, and they reviewed, different documentation and so on. But there was a very major overhaul of PYP just in the last sort of 18 months or so, and some new enhancements have come out for us to address as a school. And one of them is around this idea of agency. And really, if it's just about, in a very sort of simplistic way, it's just about giving the students a voice in what it is that they're learning, giving them choices in how they want to perhaps display their learning or participate in their learning, and then ownership of that, so they feel that they're more in control of the direction of their learning. I will do more sessions later in the year on inquiry and agency specifically, so I don't want to spend too much time going into it just now. But I just wanted to address this point because, again, you might hear the children coming home and talking about, the agency they had in class today. At least we hope they will. Now, assessment. I'm going to give you a little task, and I actually need some helpers, Miss Eileen and Miss Anne, if you don't mind, and Mr. Michael. I'm going to give everybody a card, if you wouldn't mind just maybe handing them out. If you have a pen, please use it, and if you don't, I'm going to give some pencils out. They're just over there. Great. It's not a hard test, don't worry. Okay. Yep, just hand them out, and so I hope we've got enough pens and pencils. Sorry, do you need one? Yeah. Some people look a bit nervous. Don't be, it's okay. Okay, has everyone got one? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Now, we're just going to imagine for a moment that we're back to our childhoods, and this is a very strict test. You're not allowed to speak to anybody, okay? And you're not allowed to call out any answers, and no talking at the back as well, please, okay? Okay, so these are the instructions for your test. Please don't discuss with anybody. Your task today is to draw a house. No talking, please. Can't spend all day doing this, so I really need you to hurry up. Okay, Mr. Ivan, their time is up. They've had enough time for the test. Thank you. Pencils down, please. All right. So now you're going to self-assess your test. And it's going to be a mark out of 5. I'm going to tell you what you get a mark for. You need to be honest. Just make a note on the side of your page. The first thing is your house has to have a square somewhere in it. If you've got a mark, just put a little mark on your paper. Not a rectangle, it must be a square. Oh. Number 2, your house needs to be shaded in. Shaded, it has to be colored in. If you didn't do it, no mark. It's good you're sitting in the front. Okay, let's hope you do better on this bit. Your house has to have 1 door. Okay. Usually everyone gets that. Okay, so you've potentially got 3 marks out of the 5. For the 4th mark, your house has to have 4 windows. 4 windows. Yeah. 4. Sorry, that's my Irish accent. 4 windows. Sorry? 1 door, 4 windows. 4 windows, that's it. And the last mark, I really hope you get this. There needs to be flowers in front of your house. Okay, so what I'm really asking is that a fair test for you? And why not? Anyone? Yeah. Thank you. First of all, everyone has a different perspective. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Did you want the same perspective? Yeah. Also, I didn't share with you at the beginning what the expectations were. So imagine if we came in one day and we just told the children, okay, we're going to have a test on the unit now. Off you go. This is what you have to do. But we haven't sat with them and talked to them about what a really good example might look like. Or we haven't talked to them about what skills you have to use. Or we haven't talked about which concepts we're talking about to help them to understand something. So part of the assessment that we do here is very much about bringing the students on board and having their input into the assessment task, and even as far as into the assessment marking. It's very important that students understand when we say, for example, meeting grade level expectations, what that looks like, and what their next steps could be for them to get better at something. So this is just sort of a list about what we do generally around assessment here. It's ongoing. We have it at the start of units, throughout units, at the end, at various stages. We use many different tools and strategies. Sometimes it's observational assessments. Sometimes we do use formal tests. We do have something called MAP here at the school, for example, where we also can gauge how students are doing from a sort of an international perspective, from a level, where they would be placed internationally. So again, different methods of assessment that are appropriate to the learning. So for example, if I had asked you to draw this house for me because I want to know if you can bake a cake, well, it's pointless, right? So the assessment needs to match the learning. That it addresses all the different elements that we've been speaking about this morning, that it allows the students to take ownership of it and let them feel empowered. I'm sure there was probably a little part of you that brought you back to your childhood, and maybe you might not have had a very good assessment experience, and maybe you started to feel a bit panicky about it. And that's not what assessment is about. It's about helping students to know where they're going on their learning journey, and helping the teacher, obviously, as well. So that's about the setting the goals, and it allows us to feed back to the students in real time and to encourage them to be lifelong learners, so they don't have this fear of assessments. So these were some of the questions that we had at the start. Maybe just have another little look at them again. Do you feel your questions have been answered? And if there's still something that you think didn't quite answer it for me, we can have a few minutes now to chat, or you're very welcome to come and see me anytime, or just drop by or send me an email. I think we've pretty much hit on most of them. The most important one. Thank you very much, everybody. If you have any questions, please let me know. Yes? Yeah.
We were talking about this house structure, right? You did not give us any instructions that we need to have one window,
Exactly.
4 doors or whatever.
Yes.
So in this scenario, for the children, do we have to set goals? Is it together? If at all we're going to do it, how are we going to do it? Like, is the teacher, how we need to do it?
Absolutely.
Is
That's
there